In a bustling urban city known for its vibrant culture and diverse communities, two lives were about to collide in a way that would change everything. Among the sea of faces moving through the streets, Agent Maya Lewis stood out. She was a skilled FBI agent, admired for her intelligence and unwavering commitment to justice. With years of experience under her belt, Maya had proven time and again that she was not just good at her job, she was exceptional. Her colleagues respected her, and the community looked up to her. Maya was determined to make a difference in a world that often felt unfair. On the other side of town, Officer Jake Thompson patrolled the streets with a chip on his shoulder. He believed he was better than most people, especially those he considered different. With a badge that he wore like a crown, Thompson was a cop who had no qualms about using his power. He harbored deep-seated prejudices against people of color, which had only grown over the years. His attitude had led him to clash with numerous individuals, but he brushed off their complaints as mere inconveniences. For Thompson, the world was divided, and he was on the winning side. One fateful day, everything changed. Maya was working undercover as part of a critical investigation into a local crime syndicate that had been terrorizing neighborhoods. As she moved through a quiet alley, she felt a sense of purpose. She was gathering evidence that could bring down a group responsible for countless crimes. But fate had other plans. Suddenly, Officer Thompson appeared, his eyes narrowing as he spotted Maya. To him, she was just another woman of color he believed didn't belong in the area. Ignoring her FBI badge and the professional demeanor she maintained, he approached her with an air of arrogance. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice dripping with disdain. Maya, taken aback, tried to explain her identity and purpose. "I'm with the FBI. I'm conducting an investigation," she replied calmly, hoping to defuse the situation. But Thompson had already made up his mind. In his twisted view of the world, her words were meaningless. "You're just playing dress-up," he sneered, stepping closer with an intimidating posture. The tension in the air thickened as Maya tried to assert herself, but he wasn't listening. "I'm arresting you for loitering," he declared, pulling out his handcuffs. Maya's heart raced, a mix of anger and disbelief flooding her veins. Here she was, a dedicated agent fighting for justice, being treated like a common criminal by a man who couldn't see past his own prejudices. As he slapped the cuffs around her wrists, she felt a surge of frustration. This wasn't just an attack on her. It was an attack on everyone who had faced injustice. With the flashing lights of Thompson's patrol car illuminating the dark alley, a crowd began to gather. Shocked faces stared at the scene, whispering among themselves. People pulled out their phones to record the event, sensing that something was very wrong. Maya knew this wasn't over. She had faced challenges before, and she would rise above this one too. As Thompson drove away, a sense of urgency began to build within Maya. She knew she had to stay focused, not just for herself, but for the greater cause. Little did Thompson know that the consequences of his actions were just beginning, and soon, karma would come knocking at his door. The arrest was only the start of a much larger story, one that would intertwine their lives in ways neither of them could have anticipated. As Maya sat in the back of Officer Thompson's patrol car, her mind raced with thoughts of the injustice she had just experienced. The cold metal of the handcuffs dug into her wrists, a physical reminder of how one person's prejudice could turn her world upside down. She could hear the murmurs of the crowd outside, people shocked at what they had just witnessed. This wasn't just about her. It was about the countless others who had faced similar situations because of the color of their skin. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that she was more than just a victim. She was a fighter. Meanwhile, Officer Thompson was reveling in what he thought was a small victory. He had arrested a criminal and was proud of himself. In his mind, he was a hero, saving the streets from what he considered dangerous people. As he drove, he played the moment over and over, relishing the power he felt when he slapped the cuffs on Maya. However, he was blind to the reality of his actions. He had no idea that the woman he had just arrested was an FBI agent who was working hard to bring down a crime syndicate. He thought he was untouchable, operating within his own distorted sense of justice. After what felt like an eternity, they arrived at the police station. Thompson pulled Maya out of the car, still feeling a sense of superiority. But as he led her inside, things began to change. The officers on duty were surprised to see Maya, recognizing her as a respected FBI agent. Whispers spread quickly through the station. "What's going on here?" One officer asked, a look of confusion on his face. Thompson tried to explain, but his story sounded increasingly flimsy as more people gathered. Maya remained calm, using this moment to assert her authority. "I'm an FBI agent, and this is a wrongful arrest," she declared, her voice steady. The other officers looked at Thompson with a mix of disbelief and concern. They had seen his questionable behavior before but had never thought he would go this far. Realizing the situation was slipping from his control, Thompson's bravado began to fade. He stammered, trying to defend his actions, but the tide had turned against him. The room grew tense as more people started to question him. They knew Maya was trustworthy and had earned their respect. Meanwhile, Maya used this opportunity to gather her thoughts and plan her next steps. She knew she needed to act fast. Her investigation was still ongoing, and the crime syndicate was counting on her. As word spread, her colleagues at the FBI were notified about the arrest. They couldn't believe that someone would be so reckless and ignorant to arrest one of their own. Soon, a senior agent arrived at the station, and when he learned what had happened, his expression darkened. "This needs to be reported to Internal Affairs immediately," he said, glancing at Thompson, who stood cornered and sweating under the scrutiny of his peers. Back at the station, the atmosphere shifted. Maya felt a rush of determination. She wasn't just going to let this incident define her. She was going to turn it into a catalyst for change. She started to gather evidence, knowing that her colleagues would back her up. This was no longer just about her wrongful arrest. It was about standing up against racism in law enforcement and ensuring that this kind of injustice would not happen again. As the paperwork was filled out and the investigation began, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. She had already faced many challenges in her career, but this one felt different. It was personal. With every passing moment, she felt more empowered to fight, not just for herself, but for all those who had suffered due to the biases of others. She could feel the tide of change rising, and she was determined to be at the forefront. Officer Thompson may have thought he had the upper hand, but soon he would learn that karma has a way of catching up with those who choose hate over understanding. As the tension in the police station thickened, Maya took a moment to gather her thoughts. She knew she had to remain calm and focused. This was not just about her. It was about proving that no one should be above the law, especially not someone who abused their power. She felt a sense of urgency as she remembered the ongoing investigation into the crime syndicate. The stakes were high, and she couldn't afford to let this wrongful arrest derail her work. Officer Thompson, feeling increasingly cornered, watched as Maya's colleagues began to gather. He had been too blinded by his prejudices to recognize the strength of the people around him. Agents he had once dismissed as weak were now standing behind Maya, ready to support her. This was a community that believed in justice and would not let one bad cop tarnish their reputation. As her fellow agents rallied, Maya felt a surge of support. She turned to them, her voice steady yet passionate. "We have to take a stand against this kind of behavior. It's not just about me. It's about everyone who has been mistreated because of their race." Her words resonated with the group, igniting a sense of purpose among her colleagues. They knew this was a pivotal moment, one that could spark significant change within the police department and the community. The senior agent who had arrived at the station quickly took charge of the situation. He initiated an internal investigation, gathering statements from Maya and the other officers who had witnessed Thompson's actions. They started to compile evidence, including video footage from body cameras and cell phones that had captured the scene. Each piece of evidence painted a clearer picture of Thompson's misconduct, revealing not just a single moment of prejudice, but a pattern of behavior that had long gone unchecked. Meanwhile, Thompson's bravado was fading fast. He felt the weight of the scrutiny from his peers and could sense the walls closing in around him. He had always believed he was untouchable, but now the reality was crashing down. The more he tried to defend his actions, the more ridiculous he sounded. He attempted to shift the blame, claiming Maya had provoked him. But deep down, he knew the truth. He had let his racism cloud his judgment. As the investigation progressed, Maya decided to take matters into her own hands. She called a meeting with her team to discuss the next steps in her investigation into the crime syndicate. With the support of her colleagues, she presented the evidence they had gathered. It was time to leverage the momentum from her wrongful arrest into a stronger case against the criminal organization. They were determined to prove that Thompson's actions were not just an isolated incident, but part of a larger issue of corruption and discrimination within law enforcement. Maya assigned specific roles to each team member, ensuring that everyone had a part to play in this critical moment. They reviewed their evidence and connected the dots between the syndicate's activities and Thompson's involvement. Every detail mattered, and they needed to act quickly. The community was watching, and they felt a responsibility to make a difference. The meeting was charged with energy and purpose. Maya led the discussion, reminding everyone of the larger goal: justice for all. She emphasized that they were fighting not just for her, but for the integrity of their work and the trust of the community. The atmosphere in the room shifted from one of despair over the incident to a fierce determination to expose the truth. As they finalized their plans, Maya felt a renewed sense of hope. She knew that what had happened to her was wrong, but it had also ignited a fire within her. This was a chance to create change and hold those who abused their power accountable. She was ready to fight, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever faced discrimination and injustice. And as she looked around at her team, she felt confident that together they could make a difference. The journey ahead would be tough, but Maya was prepared to face it head-on, determined to ensure that justice would prevail. As the investigation into Officer Thompson's actions continued, the atmosphere in the office was electric with determination. Maya and her team worked tirelessly to piece together the evidence against the crime syndicate and connect it to Thompson's misconduct. They felt a strong sense of responsibility, knowing that their work could have a lasting impact on their community and help restore faith in law enforcement. Maya led the charge, poring over documents and reports, making phone calls to gather more information, and collaborating with different agencies. She was relentless in her pursuit of the truth, knowing that this was not just about her wrongful arrest, but also about the many people who had been victimized by both the crime syndicate and the very officers meant to protect them. Her colleagues rallied behind her, inspired by her passion and commitment. They brainstormed ideas, strategizing on how to approach their case while ensuring they had every detail covered. Meanwhile, Officer Thompson found himself isolated. The once respected officer was now the subject of scorn among his peers. The internal investigation had revealed a troubling pattern of behavior, including complaints from community members who had encountered him on the streets. As his colleagues began to share their experiences, it became clear that Thompson's prejudices had led to more than just Maya's wrongful arrest. His actions had created an atmosphere of fear and distrust, not only for those he was supposed to protect, but also among his fellow officers. The day came when Maya's team had gathered enough evidence to confront the crime syndicate. They had uncovered links between the organization and several officers in the department, including Thompson. The information was shocking, revealing a web of corruption that extended far beyond Thompson's prejudices. As they prepared for the operation, Maya felt a mix of excitement and nerves. This was it, the moment they would expose the truth and hold the right people accountable. On the day of the operation, Maya stood with her team, going over the final details. They had coordinated with other law enforcement agencies to ensure that they had the necessary backup. As they reviewed their plan, Maya felt a sense of unity among her colleagues. They were all on the same page, driven by the desire to bring justice to their community. "We have to stay focused," she reminded them. "This isn't just about arresting these criminals. It's about restoring trust." As they moved out, Maya took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. They arrived at the location where they believed the crime syndicate was conducting business. The tension was palpable as they prepared to make their move. Maya could feel her heart racing, knowing that this was more than just a routine operation. It was a fight for justice and a step towards changing the narrative around law enforcement. With a signal from Maya, the team moved in swiftly and decisively. They stormed the building, surprising the criminals inside. The operation was intense, but thanks to their careful planning and teamwork, they quickly gained control. Maya led the way, her instincts sharp and her training kicking in. She felt empowered, knowing that she was doing what she was meant to do: protect and serve. As they apprehended the members of the syndicate, Maya's thoughts briefly drifted to Thompson. She wondered if he would finally understand the consequences of his actions. As her team secured the scene, she saw the frustration and disbelief on the faces of the criminals as they realized they had been caught. This was a moment of victory, not just for her, but for everyone who had been wronged. After the operation, as they began to process the arrests and gather evidence, Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had accomplished what they set out to do, and in doing so, they had sent a clear message. No one was above the law. The weight of injustice that had been on her shoulders began to lift, replaced by a sense of purpose. The road ahead was still long, and there would be challenges to face, but Maya was ready. She had fought hard for this moment, and she would continue to fight for justice, equality, and a better future for her community. After the successful operation against the crime syndicate, the atmosphere in the office was filled with a mix of relief and excitement. Maya and her team had worked hard to gather the evidence and execute the plan, and now they were witnessing the fruits of their labor. As they began processing the arrests, there was a palpable sense of camaraderie among the agents. They had stood together during a challenging time, and their bond had only grown stronger. Maya couldn't help but feel proud of what they had accomplished. The operation had not only resulted in significant arrests, but also sent a strong message to the community: justice could prevail. However, she knew that this was just the beginning. The aftermath of their success brought new challenges that needed to be addressed, especially regarding the systemic issues within the police department. In the following days, news of the operation spread throughout the city. Maya's name was frequently mentioned in news reports, praising her bravery and dedication. However, not everyone was happy about the attention. Officer Thompson was becoming increasingly frustrated. As the internal investigation against him progressed, he found himself facing serious consequences for his actions. The very colleagues he once looked down on were now part of the process that could lead to his dismissal. Thompson's arrogance had crumbled, leaving him feeling vulnerable. As he sat in his small office, he couldn't shake the feeling of isolation. He thought about the people he had mistreated and how his prejudices had cost him not just his reputation, but also his career. He had spent years believing he was better than others, but now he was facing the harsh reality of his choices. He had let hate cloud his judgment, and now he was paying the price. While Thompson struggled with his downfall, Maya remained focused on her mission. The FBI leadership recognized her commitment and bravery, and they began discussing plans to reform the police department. They knew that addressing issues of racism and misconduct was essential for rebuilding trust with the community. Maya was invited to join a special task force aimed at implementing new training programs and policies to ensure that officers were held accountable for their actions. This opportunity felt like a turning point for Maya. She had always wanted to make a difference, and now she was in a position to help bring about real change. She gathered her thoughts and met with the other members of the task force. During their meetings, Maya shared her experiences and the importance of empathy and understanding in policing. "We need to create a culture where officers feel comfortable speaking out against misconduct," she urged. It's not just about enforcing the law. It's about protecting our community and each other. As they worked together, the task force developed a comprehensive training program that focused on racial bias, community engagement, and de-escalation techniques. They wanted to ensure that officers understood the impact of their actions and learned to interact with the community respectfully. Maya felt hopeful that these changes could make a real difference in how policing was perceived in the city. Meanwhile, the internal investigation into Thompson continued, revealing not only his prejudice, but also connections to the crime syndicate. As more evidence surfaced, it became clear that Thompson had been involved in corruption for years. The community began to demand accountability, and it became evident that Thompson's actions had far-reaching consequences. Finally, the day of Thompson's hearing arrived. The room was packed with officers, community members, and reporters, all eager to see what would happen. Maya sat among her colleagues, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. This was a moment of reckoning, not just for Thompson, but for the entire police department. As the hearing began, witnesses came forward to share their experiences, highlighting the impact of Thompson's actions on their lives. The testimonies were powerful, and Maya could see the anger and pain in the faces of those who had suffered because of Thompson's prejudices. She felt their frustration and knew this was an important step in healing the wounds that had been inflicted on the community. Thompson's arrogance had faded, and as he listened to the testimonies, the weight of his actions began to sink in. The reality of what he had done was finally becoming clear, and he had to face the consequences. As the hearing continued, Maya felt a sense of hope. This was a chance for change, a moment to confront the ugly truth and start building a better future for everyone. With every word spoken in that hearing, Maya knew they were laying the groundwork for accountability and justice. No longer would people feel powerless against the biases of a few. Together, they were taking a stand, and Maya felt proud to be part of that movement. As the hearing progressed, the atmosphere in the room grew tense. Maya listened intently to the testimonies, each one revealing the deep scars left by Officer Thompson's actions. Victims spoke about how they had been treated unfairly, often subjected to unnecessary aggression simply because of the color of their skin. Each story was a reminder of the importance of their mission to bring about change. Maya felt a wave of empathy for those sharing their experiences. She had faced her own battles, but hearing the pain in their voices made her even more determined to fight for justice. These were real people whose lives had been affected by prejudice and discrimination, and their courage in speaking out inspired her. They were standing up not just for themselves, but for all those who had been silenced. The hearing was drawing attention, and media outlets reported on it extensively. News cameras captured the emotion of the moment, bringing the stories to a wider audience. Maya knew this was crucial. The more people learned about the realities of policing and racism, the more support it could gather for reform. This was a chance to create a ripple effect that could lead to broader societal change. As the testimonies continued, the mood shifted. There was a growing sense of solidarity in the room. Community members and officers who once felt divided were now coming together, united in their desire for a better future. Maya looked around and saw nods of agreement among her colleagues. They were beginning to understand that this was not just about one officer's failings, but about creating a culture of accountability and respect. Finally, it was Thompson's turn to speak. He sat at the front, visibly nervous and sweating under the scrutiny of the audience. As he began to address the room, he stumbled over his words. He attempted to justify his actions, claiming he was just trying to do his job and protect the community. But his excuses fell flat against the weight of the evidence presented. Maya could see the frustration on the faces of those listening. They had heard enough empty rhetoric. They wanted accountability. With each passing moment, the reality of Thompson's position sank in. The stories of the victims had shattered his defense. He had spent years believing that he was above reproach, but now he was facing the consequences of his actions. The room fell silent as the reality of the situation settled over everyone. Thompson could no longer hide behind his badge. The truth had come to light. When it was Maya's turn to speak, she felt a surge of confidence. She stood up and faced the room, her voice steady and strong. "This isn't just about Officer Thompson," she began. "This is about all of us. It's about the responsibility we have to serve and protect every member of our community, regardless of their race. We need to hold each other accountable. We need to do better." Her words resonated deeply with the audience. She emphasized that change was not just necessary, it was possible. They had the power to reshape the future of policing and make it more just and equitable. Maya's passionate speech moved many in the room, sparking a renewed commitment to the cause. They could see that this moment was a turning point, and they were all part of it. As the hearing concluded, the atmosphere was charged with determination. Maya felt a sense of hope that had been missing before. She knew that the fight for justice was far from over, but they were on the right path. With the community and her colleagues standing alongside her, she believed that real change was achievable. In the days that followed, news of the hearing and Maya's speech spread like wildfire. The community was energized, and people began to come together, demanding more accountability from their local police. Town hall meetings were organized, and citizens voiced their concerns about police practices and the need for reforms. It was a grassroots movement gaining momentum, and Maya felt proud to be at the forefront of it. As she continued her work with the task force, Maya knew they had only scratched the surface. There was so much to be done, but she felt hopeful. With each step forward, they were building a better future, a future where everyone could feel safe and respected, regardless of their background. Together, they were not just addressing the past, they were shaping a new narrative for the community. Maya felt a deep sense of purpose in this fight, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The journey was just beginning, and she was committed to seeing it through to the end. As the weeks went by, the movement for change in the community began to grow stronger. Maya watched with pride as more people got involved, attending meetings and sharing their stories. The momentum was building, and the calls for accountability were impossible to ignore. It was inspiring to see neighbors, friends, and family members coming together to demand justice and fairness from their local police force. Maya continued to work closely with the task force, and they met regularly to discuss strategies for implementing reforms. They developed a plan to introduce community engagement initiatives, allowing residents to have a say in how policing was done in their neighborhoods. They wanted to create a platform where citizens could voice their concerns, share their experiences, and suggest improvements. This was a crucial step in rebuilding trust between the police and the community. One of the first initiatives was to organize community forums, where residents could meet with officers in a relaxed setting. Maya and her team believed that these gatherings could help humanize both sides, fostering understanding and respect. They wanted to break down the barriers that had existed for so long. Maya was excited about this new approach, knowing that open dialogue was key to making a real difference. On the day of the first forum, the turnout exceeded everyone's expectations. Residents filled the community center, eager to express their views. Maya felt a sense of hope as she looked around the room. It was a diverse crowd, representing different ages, backgrounds, and experiences. She realized that this was the moment they had all been waiting for, a chance to connect and build relationships. Maya opened the forum, welcoming everyone and thanking them for coming. She emphasized the importance of their voices in shaping the future of policing in their community. "Today, we are here to listen to you," she said passionately. "We want to hear your experiences and understand how we can do better. This is your chance to share what matters most." As the forum began, residents took turns sharing their stories. Some spoke about their positive interactions with police officers, while others recounted painful experiences of discrimination and mistreatment. Maya listened attentively, taking notes and absorbing every word. She could feel the emotions in the room, the anger, the sadness, but also the hope for change. One elderly woman stood up and spoke about how she had lived in the neighborhood for decades. She recalled the fear she felt whenever she saw a police car driving by. worried that her children would be stopped for no reason. Her voice trembled as she shared her concerns, and Maya could see the tears in her eyes. "I just want to feel safe in my own home," the woman said, and the room fell silent. Maya felt a lump in her throat. She realized that these stories were not just isolated incidents. They represented a deep-rooted issue that needed to be addressed. After the woman spoke, Maya thanked her for her bravery and assured her that they would work to make her community a safer place for everyone. As the forum continued, more people shared their experiences. There was a sense of camaraderie in the room, as community members began to connect with one another over shared struggles. Maya could see that they were not just individuals. They were part of a larger community that was ready to stand together for change. The discussions were passionate but respectful, and Maya felt encouraged by the willingness of everyone to engage in difficult conversations. There were disagreements, of course, but they were met with understanding rather than hostility. Maya had hoped for this outcome, and it felt like a turning point. After the forum, Maya and her team gathered to reflect on the day's events. They discussed what they had learned and how they could use that feedback to shape future initiatives. Maya was filled with excitement and energy. This was just the beginning. They had opened the door to meaningful dialogue and change. As they left the community center, Maya felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. She knew that their efforts were making a difference. The path ahead would still be challenging, but she was committed to continuing the work. With every forum, every conversation, and every connection made, they were slowly but surely transforming the relationship between the police and the community. Together, they were building a foundation of trust, respect, and understanding that would last for years to come. Maya could finally see a brighter future on the horizon, one where everyone felt valued and safe in their own neighborhood. After the first community forum, the energy in Maya's office remained high. The team had received a flood of positive feedback, with many residents expressing gratitude for the opportunity to share their experiences. Maya felt motivated to keep the momentum going, so she and her team started planning more forums throughout the city. They wanted to reach as many neighborhoods as possible and engage with diverse groups of people. As they organized these events, Maya also recognized the need to involve local leaders and organizations. She reached out to community groups, schools, and churches, inviting them to collaborate on the forums. Maya believed that the more voices included, the richer the conversation would be. Her efforts paid off as local leaders eagerly joined the initiative, bringing their own perspectives and insights to the discussions. The next forum was set to take place in a neighborhood that had faced significant challenges with crime and distrust in the police. Maya knew that this would be a crucial opportunity to hear from residents who had felt neglected and frustrated. She was prepared for the possibility of strong emotions, but she was determined to create a safe space for everyone to express themselves. On the day of the forum, the turnout was impressive. Residents filled the seats, and Maya could see a mix of anticipation and skepticism on their faces. She recognized that many had likely attended previous meetings without seeing real change. Maya opened the forum by sharing the goals of their discussions: to listen, learn, and work together to build a better community. As the forum began, Maya encouraged attendees to share their thoughts openly. A young man stood up first, expressing his concerns about police presence in the neighborhood. "It feels like we're always being watched," he said, frustration evident in his voice. "We want to feel safe, but it's hard when we feel like suspects in our own community." The room murmured in agreement, and Maya nodded, acknowledging the sentiment. She understood that for many, the police represented authority, but also fear. Maya listened intently as more residents spoke about their experiences. Some shared stories of family members being unfairly treated by the police, while others spoke about how they longed for more positive interactions. The emotional weight of their words hung in the air, making it clear that these conversations were necessary for healing. One mother stood up, holding back tears as she spoke about her son. "He's a good kid," she said, her voice shaky. "He doesn't deserve to be judged just because of the color of his skin." The room fell silent as her pain echoed through the audience. Maya felt a surge of empathy and sorrow for this mother's experience. She knew that these were the stories that needed to be heard. After the mother spoke, Maya took a moment to address the crowd. "I'd want to thank you all for sharing your stories. It takes courage to speak up, and I want you to know that we hear you. We are committed to making a change." Her words were met with a mix of hope and skepticism. While many were grateful for the chance to express themselves, they were also wary of whether anything would actually improve. Maya was determined to prove that this was more than just talk. She shared the progress they had made since the last forum, detailing the reforms they were working on and the initiatives they hoped to implement. "We want to create programs that build bridges between the police and the community," she said. "We're not just listening. We want to take action." Encouraged by her message, more residents began to share their ideas for improvement. Some suggested youth programs to engage young people positively, while others proposed community policing initiatives where officers could get to know residents personally. The room buzzed with energy as people felt empowered to contribute to the discussion. Maya couldn't help but smile at the enthusiasm. This was what they had hoped for, a genuine partnership between the police and the community. As the forum came to a close, Maya felt a sense of accomplishment. While there was still much work to be done, the conversation sparked ideas and a renewed commitment to change. She thanked everyone for attending and encouraged them to keep the dialogue going. "Together, we can make our community a better place for everyone," she concluded. After the forum, Maya and her team discussed the feedback they had received. They realized that these meetings were not just about listening. They were a crucial step in rebuilding trust. Each forum was a reminder that change was possible, but it required effort and dedication from everyone involved. Maya left the community center that day with a full heart and a determined spirit. She knew that the journey ahead would have its challenges, but she was ready to face them head-on. With each step they took, they were building a stronger, more united community, one conversation at a time. The path to change was long, but Maya was confident they were headed in the right direction. Together, they were laying the foundation for a brighter future, where everyone felt safe, respected, and heard. As the weeks turned into months, Maya and her team continued their work with unwavering commitment. The community forums had become a regular event, and each gathering attracted more participants than the last. People were beginning to feel a sense of ownership over the process, and the conversations were growing deeper and more impactful. Maya loved seeing the community come together, united in their desire for change. One evening, as she prepared for the next forum, Maya received a call from a local reporter. The journalist wanted to write a feature about the community's efforts to improve relationships with the police. Maya was excited about the opportunity, knowing that positive media coverage could help spread their message further. "This is our chance to showcase the voices of the community," she thought. The reporter came to the forum, capturing the emotions and stories shared by residents. He interviewed Maya, asking her about the impact the forums were having and the goals they aimed to achieve. Maya spoke passionately about the importance of building trust and understanding, emphasizing that change required everyone's involvement. The article was published a few days later, and it highlighted the ongoing dialogue between the community and the police, showcasing their efforts as a model for other cities. After the article was released, Maya noticed an increase in community engagement. People were more willing to come forward with their ideas and concerns. Some even reached out to her directly, suggesting new initiatives and expressing their support. One of the most exciting proposals was to create a youth mentorship program, where officers would work directly with young people in the community, guiding them and helping them develop skills for the future. Maya loved this idea and quickly brought it to the task force. They brainstormed ways to make the mentorship program a reality. After much planning and preparation, they announced a launch event to gather participants and mentors. Maya was thrilled to see so many young people interested in joining. On the day of the event, the excitement in the air was palpable. The community center was filled with laughter and chatter as young people arrived, eager to meet the officers who would be mentoring them. Maya opened the event by welcoming everyone and explaining the purpose of the mentorship program. She shared her own experiences growing up, emphasizing the importance of having positive role models. "You are the future of our community," she said, looking around at the bright faces in the room. "We want to support you and help you reach your dreams." As the event progressed, young people paired up with officers, discussing their interests and goals. Maya watched as friendships began to form, and the barriers that once existed started to fade. It was heartwarming to see the connections being made right before her eyes. The mentors were not just officers in uniforms. They were individuals who genuinely cared about the youth and wanted to help them succeed. One young girl named Jasmine caught Maya's attention. She was shy but spoke passionately about her dream of becoming a doctor. Maya approached her and asked if she wanted to share her goals with the group. Jasmine hesitated, then took a deep breath and stood up. "I'd want to help people," she said softly. "I want to make a difference." Maya smiled, knowing that Jasmine's ambition reflected the spirit of the program. As the mentorship program continued to grow, Maya realized that they were making a real impact. The young people felt empowered, and the officers found fulfillment in their roles as mentors. The program not only strengthened relationships, but also instilled hope for a brighter future. Maya knew that this was just one step in a long journey, but it felt significant. With each success, Maya felt a sense of fulfillment. The community was coming together, and the walls of distrust were slowly crumbling. However, she also understood that challenges remained. Not everyone was convinced that change was possible, and some still held onto old beliefs. Maya remained focused on her mission, determined to show them that transformation could happen. As the mentorship program continued to thrive, Maya also emphasized the importance of feedback. She wanted to ensure that everyone's voice was heard, so she created a suggestion box at each forum and program event. This way, community members could share their thoughts anonymously, allowing for honest and open communication. Maya believed that every opinion mattered and that by listening to the community, they could continually improve their efforts. The feedback began to pour in, and Maya was grateful for the insights shared. Some residents expressed a desire for more workshops on topics like conflict resolution and communication skills. Others wanted to see more events that celebrated diversity and unity in the community. Maya and her team took this feedback seriously and started planning additional programs to address these requests. As the year came to a close, Maya reflected on the progress they had made. She felt proud of the relationships built, the conversations sparked, and the real changes beginning to take shape. Each forum, each program, and each story shared brought them closer to their goal of a more united and understanding community. While there was still work to be done, Maya felt hopeful. She had witnessed the power of dialogue and connection, and she was excited about the future. Together, they were not just changing policies, they were changing hearts and minds. And with that, Maya knew they were creating a legacy of hope for generations to come.